Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in. We are here to discuss the very exciting new data that's available in Prosperity Now Scorecard, our congressional district data. And we want to discuss how you can use that to educate policymakers this cycle. For starters, I'm Vanna, the Senior Advocacy Manager here at Prosperity Now.
I'm Chad Bolt, the Associate Policy Director at Indivisible.
And I'm Kasey Wiedrich, the Applied Research Director with Prosperity Now.
And for starters, Kasey will just give us a brief overview of what's in the new scorecard data.
Great, thanks. And the scorecard is Prosperity Now's online data tool, which is a really comprehensive resource for data on household financial security, as well as state policy recommendations on helping all families in America achieve and maintain prosperity. And today we're releasing new data at the local level. So you can find data for your city, your county, your metro area, but also for the first time in 2018, we're adding tribal area data, but also congressional district data. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So if you go to the scorecard, which you can find at scorecard.prosperitynow.org, you can find for your congressional district, I've got an example of the report that you can pull right here. You can find 24 measures specific to your congressional district across 5 different issue areas in the scorecard. So we have data under financial assets and income, which includes income poverty, income inequality, also our key measure of household savings, which is liquid asset poverty rate. That measures whether a household has enough liquid savings, so money in a checking account, but even in a retirement account that you could liquidate if you had an emergency. And do you have enough in those types of accounts that if your income went away for 3 months, you could replace your income at the poverty level? So not your current level of consumption, but just making it by at the poverty level. So in addition to that, we've also got measures of business value, business ownership, unemployment data, housing data by race, looking at housing cost burden for renters. In healthcare, we've got data on people's access to health insurance, so uninsured rates overall, but by race, but also by gender. And finally, we've got educational attainment, so looking at people who have college degrees by race and by gender. And with that, we'll talk a little bit later about how to pull some of the data from the scorecard, but I want to turn to Vanna and to Chad to talk about why is having specific data at the congressional district like this so important for your work?
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, effective advocacy, effective organizing combines both storytelling and data. We know that people are out meeting with their members of Congress or calling congressional offices just talking about how policies affect their specific life, how policies affect their specific work. But this data allows a broader look at how these policies affect districts as a whole, and what members of Congress can do in response to this data. So really great information out there to both inform decisions that members of Congress have yet to make, some policies that are floating out there now, and to show some of the effects of things that have already been passed, like the tax bill that just passed and some other pretty big legislation. So really effective data to get a look at districts as a whole, to compare districts, to compare your specific congressional district to the state as a whole. So lots of different things that you can do with this data.
Yeah, and as a former congressional staffer, I'm really excited that this data is now available at the congressional district level, because that's really what members of Congress are interested in. They really want to know how policies affect and what is going on in their own congressional district. And so as someone who sat on that side of the table, meeting with folks who are bringing that kind of data to the meeting is really useful to the staffer and to the member.
Great. So, and Vanna, can you talk a little bit about some of the issues that are happening now in Congress that this scorecard data can speak to?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at big issues that are happening now, the Farm Bill, SNAP within the Farm Bill, a lot of talk out there about savings penalties or assets limits, that as well as a lot of legislation that's being considered around emergency savings. I know you talked a lot about liquid asset poverty data. Some of that data can be used and presented to Congress to show the true numbers of liquid asset poverty in their states. Other things like small dollar lending. I know that there's been a lot of talk of payday lending issues and generally small dollar lending issues out in the states. Liquid asset poverty data can also be pretty effective with that. And then there's housing data. There's always legislation considered as it relates to housing affordability. There's a lot of data on cost burden, both renters as well as homeowners. So generally just a lot of data across the board that relates to current federal policies.
And one thing that you said, Kasey, that I really want to underscore that's so exciting about this new data release is that you have many of the data points disaggregated by race and by gender, because we know that so much of what's coming across the congressional agenda right now negatively and disproportionately affects people of color and women. So it's so great to have the data separated out into those categories.
Great. So we've got a big election coming up this fall. So Jed, can you talk about how some of this data could be helpful for talking to people, to candidates as well as your elected officials?
Sure. So I think one example of that, that folks can use this data out there, is if you're going to a candidate forum, or if you just happen to see your incumbent member of Congress who's running for re-election out in public somewhere, have some of these data points committed to memory, so that you can confront them with the votes that they've taken using this data. So for example, if you're at a candidate forum, you could say something like, you, Congressman, voted for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which we know disproportionately gives huge tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations, but did you also know that X% of households in our congressional district are living in liquid asset poverty and they're left behind by the tax bill? How could you do that? Or if you're talking to candidates who are running for office for the first time, use some of this data and say, like, here's what's happening in our congressional district. What are your good ideas to move the needle on these data points?
Great. And as a tip for that, if you're ever out and you see your elected official, you can also pull up the scorecard on your phone on our mobile site, and almost all of the data in the scorecard is accessible there. So you can
so true.
do it on the fly.
Don't even have to commit it to memory.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about how folks can use some of these resources, or ways that you think some of these tools can help you in, say, meetings with folks, Vanna.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, just for policy advocacy, the scorecard one-pager, you can go to the scorecard and print it out. It's front and back with all the data from your congressional district. You can use this as a leave behind if you're meeting with a member of Congress, either in the district, or if you're doing a fly-in here to Washington, D.C. This is a pretty quick and dirty, comprehensive leave behind that you can leave with them. Or you can use this, we hope that you all will use this in your coalitions out in the states to inform your policy work. It's a great comprehensive resource that allows you to look at data across the board. So yeah, those are just some of the ways that you can use it. And also, just another way that the data can be used, coming up in mid-July, Prosperity Now is actually launching our Camp Prosperity, which is a new initiative here at Prosperity Now. It's our summer advocacy camp. So both novice as well as advanced level advocates are invited to join our summer camp. It's going to be all virtual. It'll be a 6-week camp focused on showing people how to advocate, how to use data to effectively advocate this, both this election cycle and in general. And then at the end of Camp Prosperity, people will be empowered, and we'll show you how to go out and do a day of action in your congressional district and in your community. And of course, we'll have the scorecard data available for you, as well as other materials that you can present to your members of Congress. So more information about Camp Prosperity will be coming. If you are not already a part of Prosperity Now's advocacy campaigns, please join them at prosperitynow.org/take action, and there you'll get more information about Camp Prosperity. So we hope to see you all there as campers.
Great. So now we'll show you a quick demo of how you can pull all of this data on the website and find different resources. To find the congressional district data on the scorecard, from the homepage, click Data by Location. This map defaults to states, but you select here to choose a different area, and we'll select congressional districts. From this map, you can scroll through to see the data for any specific congressional district, and to click through to find all of the data for the congressional district. You can simply click through on the map, or you can type into the box. The tip for finding congressional districts is typing the full name of the state. That will bring all of the congressional districts up in the area. We select one. This will take you through to the detail page, at which you can find all of the 24 measures that we have for congressional districts. Click through here to see the data within the different issue areas, and if the data is available by race, you can select here to see a chart of those disparities by race. You can download that chart here if you'd like to put that into presentations or different reports. Close that, and if we scroll back up, you can see the demographic data for your district, as well as download a PDF that has all of the information for the congressional district in one 2-page report that you can email to anyone, leave behind in meetings, or really share widely. And if you want to find another congressional district, close here, and it'll take you back to the map. You can also find more information for congressional districts by clicking on Data by Issue. This section of the website will show you all the data on a specific measure for all the congressional districts within your state. So you start by clicking at the top if you want to see health insurance. You can click Healthcare, select the type of measure you'd like to see, select Local Outcome Measures, and we select Uninsured Rate. You scroll down past the data definition as well as the source. You come here to the selection menu that lets you choose the local data. If we want to see congressional districts, then we're going to select within Colorado. Click Apply. The table will populate with all of the data for uninsured rates for all of Colorado's 7 congressional districts. This table is sortable by name, by population, by uninsured rates. You can also get to the data by race from this location. You can download it from here. You can also click here to see the data for all the congressional districts broken up by race, and here to see the rates by gender. You can click on the Reports menu to create other custom reports with the data for your congressional districts, including the report that has all of the data for your congressional district that I showed you earlier. You can click here to create reports and charts for the data by race, or other graphic if you're interested in any state policy solutions. Great, and with that, thank you for joining us today. Thanks, Vanna. Thanks, Chad, for joining us. And hopefully the scorecard is useful. If you have any questions, contact us at scorecard@prosperitynow.org with any questions.